Dear all, welcome to yet another exciting episode of PhD PDF Scholarship Podcast. This podcast is an extension of PhD PDF Scholarship Group. This involves researchers currently doing PhD and postdoctorate at international universities and premium institutes. We also have scientists working at R&D labs who are willing to share their experience and keen to help aspirants to evolve them as researchers. If you are a research aspirant planning to pursue PhD in the Green Hills of Ireland, then join us for an exciting episode with Dr. Unnikrishnan, the Research Project Manager at Trinity College Dublin, Ireland. So now let's get to know more about Dr. Unnikrishnan.
Hi, Nirmal. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy to join this group of PhD and postdoc aspirants and like to share my experiences of being a PhD student and now working as a research project manager in Ireland. So I would say Ireland is a great place and it's a great opportunity, but maybe there are some tips and tricks which would help you in making your life maybe a tad bit easier while you're in Ireland. So I'm happy to share that with you.
So just before getting on with our discussion session, we would like to know basic things about what you do as a researcher over there, your research in very simple language. And after that, we will explore the A to Z of how to doing research in Ireland.
Sure. So my research is basically structures for sustainability. So say, for example, my PhD research was on foundations of offshore wind turbines. So designing those foundations, analyzing them using some technique which are more accurate than the current technique. So that was kind of the research theme. But I am a civil engineer, so there's always material research. So I would work a bit on circular economy of building materials, especially concrete. And so that's there. But generally, my theme is anything that has to do with sustainability and it's related to civil engineering is my research. So the latest thesis supervision that I've done is the climate sensitivity of watersheds in Botswana. So it can be really related with climate change. And of late, I have also moved into entrepreneurship and social science-based research as well, apart from engineering. So it's more what we call interdisciplinary to transdisciplinary research.
In terms of opportunities, when you consider Ireland, what are some of the unique opportunities available for a researcher or a PhD student in Ireland? And how can students take advantage of these opportunities to enhance their skill development?
It's a very important question. And Ireland, in terms of opportunities, I would say that, certain countries have a niche for certain disciplines. For Ireland, I could really recommend biotechnology, definitely some part of engineering, like say bioengineering. And but more than that, what I feel these days is in Ireland, there are many new universities coming, which are state-sponsored universities. And so apart from the main universities like, say, Trinity College, University College Dublin, University of Galway, University of Limerick. These are the four main universities. But beyond that, there are many universities like the Atlantic Technological University, the Munster Technological University, the Southeast TU. All these new TUs have come into TU Dublin, have come into force. Now these TUs are facing a crunch of talent in both PhD and postdocs. So this is actually a unique opportunity now that if you have the right credentials, especially in an engineering field, um, to actually get into these institutions. And some of these institutions are located not in Dublin. So that might be in an area where some of the things we're going to discuss later, like the accommodation crisis, etc., are not affected. So that way there is a good opportunity. And I must add, Ireland is also known for its language education. So if you're a social science aspirant, uh, Ireland is really good in humanities, in English lit and history and archaeology and such disciplines as well.
Thank you for sharing that insight. So this is a follow-up question based on what we have discussed. So in terms of the skills, in your opinion, what are the most important skills that PhD student can develop during their studies in Ireland, particularly in terms of preparing for future career opportunities, and how can they ensure that they are developing a diverse set of skills? So skills can be anything, like nowadays data skill is something which is emerging in the last 3 years, data driven researchers. So can you share some insight on the skill aspects? Yeah.
Sure, sure. So again, like being a PhD student is mostly about specializing in your own area. But if you look towards the future and if you want to communicate your research to diverse stakeholders, say, for example, you're trying to apply for a funding, or you're trying to commercialize your research, or you're on a TV program trying to explain your research, or you go to a primary school where you want to inspire young kids to take up engineering and STEM and research or social science, or you need diverse skill sets for that to communicate and to extend your research and take it out of the academic sphere more into the community. And so, say, for example, one I could say, what about research for societal impact, community driven research? So, how can you link your research beyond your discipline to the life of common people? So that's one skill that you could develop, and there are so in that area, there are multiple programs in all universities always. First of all, as we know that, say, people from India speak English, but our academic writing could be improved. So maybe that's a skill that could be developed, and then there would be English communication could be improved. There would be classes for that. Then going more into the soft skills, there would always be some kind of an entrepreneurship program running in parallel, which PhD students could always enroll and involve in. They can get incubated, and they can grow their company while doing their PhD, or maybe after doing their PhD. So that's there. So and some of the and always there will be a career advisory service. So it's for us that we sign up to it maybe a couple of years before finishing the PhD, and update our CV, attend CV clinics, attend mock interviews for important interviews that you are shortlisted for. And so that way you are not just left with one option of being a postdoc in an academic institution, but you have many options coming your way, and that kind of empowers you as well. It increases your confidence when you have many options to take forward your skills. And Nirmal was talking about data. So automatically in any research in Ireland, I think data would appear. May it be even social science research or scientific research, data is going to appear. And there are, suppose, say, for example, in the School of Engineering, we would have the postgraduate statistics certificate that would take care of all the, say, design of experiments and testing of hypotheses and a multiple regression analysis and stuff like that would be covered there. That would be useful for research. But I would know some of the universities may be providing postgraduate certificate courses on data as well if you want to go more into it. And at the same time, there would be LinkedIn Learning available. So if you really want to learn something, you can use the LinkedIn Learning subscription of the university to actually learn whatever you want, if you want to do it in an informal setting. So that opportunity is always available. And another important thing is networking. It's a very, very important skill to develop. So, and the easiest way is to say, for example, go to conferences and then join communities. Say, like, for example, Slack is an online platform where we create communities. Now, even WhatsApp has WhatsApp communities. So, say, for example, if I'm working in wave energy, then I would join something called the Wave Energy Converter Network Cost Action of Europe. So all the European researchers who are working on this wave energy would be part of that. So then they would conduct annual training programs, summer school meetings, etc., which you could attend. So this is how you develop your network. Then again, if you like being an entrepreneur, then you can obviously attend that part, like develop those skills, and then you would develop. So creating a good LinkedIn profile would be, and Twitter would be key if you're looking in that direction. That's how you further your contacts there. So, and of course, like this is all beyond your research, updated ResearchGate and Google Scholar profiles and stuff like that. Again, another thing that I'm saying is this is really research related. So maybe in the initial phases, we are all dependent on, say, Google Scholar, but Google Scholar is not a peer-reviewed database. So when you go into research, an important thing is also to identify where are you finding your sources and whether you're getting it only from peer-reviewed sources. So then you would say, for example, Web of Science, or those kind of databases you would be more, you would get more familiar with. And all the institutions would provide these standard databases. And I think that's a good skill to have, to query those databases than doing a Google search. But obviously, this area is getting revolutionized. And maybe these days you could just go to ChatGPT and ask it to just give you peer-reviewed publication. So, there are multiple tools that and skills that you could acquire.
So that brings me to the point of what you mentioned related to entrepreneurship skills. So I'm not sure, because from your LinkedIn profile we have come across a community known as Dr. Concrete, wherein like you conducted a lot of seminars and workshops related to the sustainable aspects of concrete. So in that context, what is your experience of being an entrepreneur in Ireland, or what are some of the what role do sustainability and entrepreneurship skills play in preparing a PhD student for future career?
So it's about like 3 years, maybe during COVID time, I came across, while I was in India actually. So that's 2021. While I was in India, I went back during COVID time, and then I saw an online postgraduate certificate from Trinity called Climate Entrepreneurship. That's where I actually, I was working on a sustainability themed research, but that was not explicit. Like wherever I go, I never used to cite the Sustainable Development Goals, or I wasn't really aware of the SDGs, and or about the Climate Action Plan of Ireland, or the targets. Nothing. I was not aware of any of those things except to my own niche discipline. And I was also like, maybe not working much outside my discipline. It was all about structural analysis of foundations. It's quite narrow in some sense. So This is where I joined this course for climate entrepreneurship, and that was like a postgraduate certificate. And that helped me in so many ways. So for example, it introduced me to, say, design thinking, systems thinking, those kind of approaches and frameworks which I use. These are standard innovation frameworks, and these are standard entrepreneurship frameworks, which I could use not only to become an entrepreneur, but also to conduct a research project successfully, because they also are working with high performance teams. You're working with people. There would be conflict. How would you deal that? So that particular course was entrepreneurship from a climate context. Then the following year then I got good networks with that business school part of Trinity. And then what I did was the following year, they had a postgraduate certificate which was specifically for researchers. So how to commercialize your research, and how to how to have leadership while you are leading a research team, and creating your research plan for the next 5 years. Those kind of things were discussed in that certificate. So I took that. Then another thing, now I know we are in entrepreneurship, but is you can always find, like, maybe entrepreneurship is not for you, maybe you like teaching, then you can take training related to that. But these are some of the trainings, and then this actually led me to create this startup called Dr. Concrete. So as Nirmal said, we do a lot of workshops and dissemination, but we also like to prepare sustainable concrete. Like, prepare in the sense, we won't mass manufacture concrete, but what we are trying is to be a consultancy that would test and certify the standard number of concrete cubes for companies. So if the company comes, say that we want to make concrete in XYZ place, and there's a waste ABC there, we would put this ABC waste in concrete and bring down the carbon impact of concrete, so that then, and get it certified so that the company can start mass manufacture. But all this was inspired by these courses that I did, and the networks that I made, and the events that I attended because of those networks. So right now we are actually, so Trinity has their flagship student accelerator. So we are, Dr. Concrete is actually with the incubator now that's called the Trinity Entrepreneurial Society. And now we have got an invitation to pitch. So there were 55 teams. We are one of the 20 teams which are selected to pitch in an event for the accelerator. So if we become one of the 9 of those teams, we can get into the accelerator. But yeah, being an entrepreneur is it's very challenging, because it's also challenging in terms of people, and maybe sometimes your ideas that you think are great might not have a market, but it's very interesting and exciting. So
And
I
yeah,
would say,
when you think about becoming an entrepreneur and a researcher, how do you fit in both research aspect into entrepreneurship? And like, when becoming an entrepreneur, how much research is required in the technical side and in the non-technical side?
yeah. So, well, I mean, when we talk, say, for example, if you're starting a PhD, you don't have to start a company right away. I mean, unless you have an idea already. But what you can do is sign up for some kind of entrepreneurship program by your university. And then maybe towards the end of the PhD, and maybe many times the PhDs would spend one more year as a postdoc within the institution itself. Maybe during that time, you could actually see if there is any commercial viability of the research that you've done, and you can start something. Now, this depends on what's your research, right? Like, say for example, if you are in a scientific field, like medical field, for example, so pharmaceuticals or pharmacology or something like that. So you have that pharmacology background, and you have an idea of a better drug or something from your research. Or then what you could do is, um, you could find out some computer scientists from your network, and then you see, attend a couple of hackathons with them and try it out, how they are, how they work, are you compatible, then bring them together and form this team and then take it forward. Or you need more than that. You need people who work with the society. So you need stakeholder management and you need to work with local people. Then take some social scientists, behavioral scientists, people who would understand how people think and who can talk and influence how people change and all that. So that way, that's how I think anybody could actually try to commercialize their research. But this is something that could be done maybe at a later stage. Depends on, like whenever you feel ready. But the I would say joining an entrepreneurship course would be interesting because for the normal PhD student, that won't be a big burden. At the same time, that will be like your class, because this class and community feeling is something that you might miss in a PhD because it's very lonely process. So if you have something else going on where you have that community feeling and where you can actually vent your frustrations or whatever, if it comes to that, that would be good. And you see, like, say I'm a civil engineer, but then I meet neuroscientists, and that's when I know this is what neuroscience is all about. Like, this is what they're researching, and these are the insights about the brain. And there's even like how the brain of an entrepreneur is different from different other, like other human beings are not entrepreneurial. So that's very interesting. So one of my friends did a 10-week podcast just on that, how entrepreneurs' brains work. So I was able to see that because I know him from there, and then I connected with him on LinkedIn. This is how, and then you have some idea, like say, for example, if I have to take Dr. Concrete to more people, I need behavioral scientists. So I actually have a behavioral scientist in my mind already, someone who I met in one of these programs to take it forward. So that's how you, I think, put it into practice.
If not entrepreneurship, or if not being a founder, like what are the other career pathways that a PhD or a potential researcher can aim for in Ireland?
Sure. So, one, I am a research project manager. So, that's definitely one. So, project management in research. So, what is the advantage? Like, what the PIs or, the principal investigators are finding is that if they hire, so they are having, say, 5 or 6 projects being funded at the same time. And now what they have to do is they have to manage these projects, and they have no time to manage those projects within, like in between their academic teaching loads and their research loads and their supervision and many other meetings that they have to attend and conferences and so on. So they're looking for someone who is usually from their own field, who would understand the niche research that's going on, at the same time manage the project, rather than someone from a completely different background and a completely different university to manage these projects. So if they find that you have worked with them and that goes very good, at the same time, you are not interested in pursuing your own niche research in a specialized area, but rather interested in wider research. And maybe you're entrepreneurial and you have those management skills, and what you're interested is to see all research and maybe become a venture capitalist or something. So or get more ideas to pitch your own research proposal by looking at all these different projects. So research project management is big, and as I said before, there are many new universities in Ireland starting. They're not really new; they're 50 years old, but they are starting to do more research. So these kind of staff researcher roles and research project management roles, research center director roles, when it goes beyond 3 or 4 years experience, then you could be a director of a research center. So those are really promising. And then the funding agencies also hire these kind of people. So the main funding agencies in Ireland is the Science Foundation Ireland and the Irish Research Council and maybe the Irish Royal Society. All these people, and also the European equivalents, the ERC, the European Research Council. All these people, and the European Commission hires experts as well to study research proposals. So all these people have different roles for experts, some of which could be evaluation, but some of which could be management. So, and again, some of the other opportunities are, especially from a sustainability point of view, Sustainability Energy Authority of Ireland, Environmental Protection Agency of Ireland, then the Agricultural Department of Ireland. All these people hire research project managers and also researchers. So that might be something to look at. Another one is uh, you are an academic. So that's a common route, but it's not a very easy route. In Ireland, often late, it's becoming important that you have some teaching as well, experience as well, if you want to become an assistant professor. So um, maybe towards the end of your PhD, normally when you do your PhD, you would have some demonstration, like say being a teaching assistant, and there would be some module to equip you to be a teaching assistant. So it would be, sometimes it's mandatory. If you want to be a teaching assistant, that's also your part-time job. We'll discuss about it. So, but in that case, you would need to have some module to do that. But if you're really interested in teaching and that's what you really want, you like to develop new modules and stuff like that in a proper structured way, not in copying some structure, but in a really scientific way of how modules are developed, then you could do something like maybe as a postdoc or something you could do, or later towards a PhD, you could do something like a postgraduate certificate in teaching and learning, something like that. So, um, yeah, so that depends on your passion there. Another one which is really upcoming, not so much in Ireland at the moment, but in the UK already on force, is assistant professors with certain niche area. No, not currently assistant professors are like jack of all trades and master of all trades, and assumed to be master of all trades. And UK does a lot of educational and teaching and research. So the intersectionality between teaching and research, that they do a lot, and they try to do these surveys, and they found that it was like a person who is a really good researcher need not be, it's not like cannot be, but need not be a good teacher, and the skill sets that you need are different. So especially I've seen for the University of Nottingham has really set an example there, where they have um, there are three different types. One is assistant professor research, who does 80% research and 20% teaching. The other one, assistant professor teaching, that the converse of this. And then the the latest one is assistant professor academic management. This assistant professor manages, like say for example, the marketing of the programs, traveling to different parts of the world and promoting the programs, structuring the programs, finding out, liaising with industrial partners to see what they want, and then liaising with the academics within here to actually create those programs. Then like student satisfaction, so assessing student satisfaction and improving the process so that the satisfaction is enhanced and stuff like that. So that's another upcoming role. But the caveat here is you can't come to a PhD thinking that, yeah, I'm going to become 80% teaching, so I won't do any research. Then you won't get your PhD. So that, while doing the PhD, I think that should be the focus. And I don't know if we are going to discuss that. I would like to say some things about what should be your motivation to do a PhD? I think that's an important thing to know. But all these things are definitely there, multiple career pathways. These things you should see when you, maybe when you write, when you submit your thesis and wait for the thesis to be evaluated or something. That's when you can really focus on specializing, getting all the teaching qualifications intact or getting all the entrepreneurial qualifications. But yeah, we should discuss a bit more about the research itself, maybe.
So that brings to other point. See, when you're doing PhD, like how is the PhD structured in Ireland? Is it like
Yeah.
you need to have a coursework mandatory, or is it like in the first year itself, like you start doing research? And how is the general span of a PhD in Ireland?
Okay. Well, Irish PhDs are supposed to be structured. Now, how well they are structured depends upon from supervisors to supervisors, but they're supposed to be structured, and they usually the funding is for 3 to 4 years. So I could say by standard it will be 4 years, and then there are different classes of PhDs, like depending upon your funding agencies in Ireland, your PhD stipend, etc., can differ as well. But let's talk more into the structure. The structure is it's a 4 year structured PhD, and Nirmal was asking about mandatory modules. It's minuscule at the moment. It's only one module of 10 ECTS or two modules of 5 ECTS that you have to take. So 1 year long module or one semester module. That's all you need to take to. So it's really nothing. So that module could be, if your supervisor is happy, could be your teaching and learning module as well, or could be mm, again going back to normal. He asked about data skills. So maybe you could do one on high performance computing or parallel computing or something like that, you see. So that you could do, or the statistics one would automatically give you, say, for example, in Trinity's case, if you do a statistics diploma or certificate, you get 30 ECTS. So 10 is already done. So it's something that you and your supervisor decides, but you can always do more. You can always get more credits if you wanted to, but the time would be limited. If it's for 3 or 4 years, there's not much time, and you would be doing your. We'll come to that, the part time and stuff like that. So I will say, so this is how it's structured, and the checks and balances depends upon school to school, but usually there is a yearly progress report, and these days there is a departmental committee, sorry, a doctoral committee that's formed, and in the beginning itself, and you usually present your progress report to them, and there's something called a transfer, which happens at the maybe midway through the PhD. So if it's 3 years, 1.5 years, so that's like you are ready to move to the next stage of your PhD. So I mean, it's usually not a make and break, and usually people are not asked to stop and go away or something like that. No, but it will give you a direction where you are at and what are your strengths and weaknesses, and that's the idea of doing a transfer somewhere. So that's like a confirmation exam in India. There's something similar, but I don't think it's that rigorous, but usually make a transfer report based on your literature review and preliminary results, and then your plan to move forward. So yeah, that's how I think it's structured. And sorry, Namal, I would also like to add. So you would also like to know how the thesis is evaluated. So in Ireland, once you submit the thesis, again you have to refer to university's handbook for that. So the first thing that you have to actually do when you're trying to do a PhD is to look at the PhD handbook of that university. And that's where you see how it is done and conceived and structured and all that. So it might be slightly different from what I say from university to universities. And in terms of evaluation of thesis, submit the thesis, and then um, you have some say in level, like selecting the external examiner. You could even suggest an external examiner, but just you and your supervisor, based on mutual consultation, would have just one external examiner. So that is one really big thing in Ireland, because it depends a lot on just one person. And then you would have an internal examiner, but the external examiner has a higher power hierarchy than the internal examiner in the decision making process. The internal examiner could be from your department. It's an expert. Of course, external examiner is an expert on this, so it's the internal examiner. But the power position is for the external examiner, and your PhD can have different classifications in Ireland. It can be PhD accepted as it is, PhD accepted with minor corrections. These are the two pathways where you get your PhD straight away. But you can also have a third pathway where it's a revision of thesis, where you have to do a bit more corrections and then resubmit to get it re-evaluated, where you can actually take a master's degree and go, or you have to resubmit and you have to improve your thesis to those corrections mentioned there. Sometimes they're called major corrections, or they are called revision of thesis. So this revised thesis has to be submitted. And then the fourth one, these are all very rare, is like, say for example, you don't get along well with your supervisor and it's not going well and you're frustrated. So maybe you could try to submit and get a master's degree, or you convert it into a master's. And then the last one, which never happens, you get nothing. So that never happens. So these are the 5 classifications. So there are 5 results possible for an Irish PhD in general. So yeah.
So that offers a great level of flexibility of doing a PhD in Ireland itself. So, and just before starting PhD, like say for a candidate who want to pursue PhD in Ireland, what should be the motive, or what motivates him? Like according to you, in your perception, what is the motivating factor that a candidate can say that, yeah, I want to do a PhD in Ireland, and these are the so and so factors. And one more question attached to that: is it required to have a master's degree, or can we directly do a PhD after the bachelor's? Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Amal. So the motivation, I think it's not, the motivation should not be that I should come to Ireland. It looks very nice and beautiful, and usually the people are nice, and which is true. I think it is one of the best countries to immigrate. I mean, there are problems which will come to it, but yes, that's there. But the motivation to do a PhD there should be something that you're really interested, not because you will get a stipend that's more than your salary in India or something. That should not be the reason. It should be an area that you're comfortable with, or you're sure that because of your passion, you will learn more and more. And that's what you want to be. And it could be like, yeah, this is an area with a job and I will do everything to study it. If you have that motivation and if you sustain it, it's a bit risky if you don't have the skill set, but you can always develop skill set. Our brains can always change. Going back to my neuroscience friends, so your brains are constantly changing. You can train yourself to do whatever you want. Okay, there's nothing that humans can't do. So that way you can do it. But practically speaking, like when you usually come to do a PhD, you're 23 to 25 years old at least, right? And then it is also time, like it's not just the time, it's your 20s. Like, do you want to waste your 20s in doing a PhD, if you want to use the word waste, or say spend, or you want to do something else? It is always there, and this temptation would always be there. Your friends who are in multinational companies would be earning much more, would be, I don't know, would be having a different lifestyle to yours, and you would be like, this is like Kujela and Krishna lifestyle. So a PhD lifestyle is that. So, but we'll come to that, how we can, get over that kind of a lifestyle. So what I'm trying here is, the motivation should be really your motivation about the area, is what would sustain your interest in that area. So my advice there is, never ever compromise on your research question. If you don't like your research question, there will be opportunities to change it. If you don't like your supervisor, there will be opportunities to change it. Take those opportunities. Take those opportunities and change the question and the supervisor, because these two things are all that matters. If these two are there for you, so if you're trying to do a PhD, you have a topic. Say for example, I have a topic. I feel like I should decarbonize concrete, and I should produce better concrete, and involve local waste and valorize that waste to create low carbon concrete. So I have this idea. I write that up at least in a 2-3 pages. Sometimes I feel PhD students sending their proposal 5 lines. 5 lines of proposal shows that you're not ready to do a PhD. So you need to really write a detailed proposal. Now, that might not be the thing that you would be doing, but it shows your interest in the area, your knowledge in the area, and all those things. So, what I'm trying to say is, if you approach that kind of with the research to a professor, then you have to search for someone who works in that area. And then, ideally, you should ask around. You should find an Indian guy who has done his PhD or a foreign guy or someone and ask about this person. How is it working with this person? What should I know about this person? And don't be shy. Talk to that person. Like, ask him, like, whatever questions you want to ask and see how he reacts. Whether he is answering your questions or whether he's saying he has no time. So if he doesn't have any time for you, don't go. Don't go with him, because you need his time. You need his time and you need an empathetic person. You don't need the biggest expert in the world for a successful PhD. No, that is the worst thing. It might be sometimes helpful that if your PhD supervisor is an early academic, because they also want to showcase you as their best product, because they don't have any product, because they don't have many other products. It should not be like I have 25, the supervisor is like, I have 25 other PhDs. I don't want to talk about Unni because, I have 25 others who I can talk about. If that attitude is there, then they don't have much incentive to improve you. But so I'm not saying you should only go. There are great professors who might have 10 PhD students and could manage 10 of them because they have that passion. But there are supervisors who just don't, there are good and bad people. So there are these supervisors who just don't involve, who won't reply to your emails on time, who won't submit your manuscripts on time, who won't review your manuscripts on time. The extreme case being the ones who won't even read your thesis. And the whole onus would be on you to produce a thesis that is fit for a PhD. So it can go to all these extreme levels. I don't want to paint a picture of like a utopia. I don't want to create that. This is what happens. There are issues in supervision. This is not an Irish thing, though. This is a global thing. But how do you tackle is if you're not comfortable with a person, your supervisor and your relationship is a very, very important. So if that thing is not working out, I'm not saying at the first disagreement you change your supervisor, not at all. Or at the first bad, when something that you feel is unfair happens, you have to point out to the supervisor in a fair way, like in a polite way, like. We'll come to this, like how we can maneuver some of these things, but this is what I'm trying to say. The motivation should be working with a person who works on this area that you're really passionate about, and you have the skills to pursue it. Then yes, and you have that inquisitive mind, and you have that rough idea. This is where I want to go. Then you can do a PhD, and you should also have an idea like what you would do after that. Do you want to be a professor, or do you want to do your research-based entrepreneurship, or whatever that may be? So,
thank you for sharing that insight. Of course, yeah, anyone who has an interest or passion of doing a research, they should have a clear set idea about what they want to do and how the real scenario is all about, and what are the different types of factors that they have to consider prior to being in that position. Of course, what you mentioned is exactly resonating with what I have gone through. Like I've gone through a phase of industry transition to PhD. So the sort of what the friends whom I used to have at this moment and later, like our scale is totally different, right? Like, yeah, in a multinational company, like the way of living and the way of living that a researcher going is totally we are always on the tip of uncertainty.
We are always on the tip of financial uncertainty, personal uncertainty. Our relationships get affected.
Yeah,
There are many things. Oh my God,
yeah,
this can be scary, yes, but this may be the most exciting part of your life. This would be
exactly.
more
Yeah,
exciting than any movie that you would ever see. And there would be
exactly.
days when you wake up and you would say, all those movies are garbage because my life is more exciting. And there would be some days that you would say that I wish my life wasn't this exciting and be more normal.
Of
So
course,
that's
of
good.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that brings to our discussion to a non-academic areas. Basically, if is coming to Ireland, can you share some insight on the cultural difference between taking India and Ireland, and how can it impact the academic and social experience of a student while pursuing PhD or research in Ireland?
Well, this is a very important question. So I told you, Ireland is a very welcoming country. But we, before coming, we researchers usually research maybe the university, but we need to do a research on the country as well, and especially the weather, first of all. So we tend to blanket West like, oh yeah, it's cold there. But what we miss is, I would say, go to your weather app and download the city that you're going to do, and then monitor the weather for 6 months or whenever you're doing this process to see what's really happening there. And then you have an idea of what it's really to look there. And then if you look at the weather, it will be sometimes called blustery, I think. That's a word that says that it's windy. And so the wind would be like 50 kilometers per hour or something like that, or 35 to 50. And sometimes it will be like cloudy. Cloudy means like a gray sky. Now, someone who is coming from a sunny part of India, who's not used to uh, anything like winter, we don't have winter in Kerala, for example. We have mild summer and summer. We don't have winter. So that could be a huge shock. So yes, download the weather app and understand. So how to live in Ireland is you have to look at the weather maybe twice a day, anytime before you step out or before you plan the day. Tomorrow is the day that I'm going to go for a hike. Then the day before, and sometimes a week before, we would see how the weather is changing, and that's how we plan a hike or a surfing trip or whatever. But again, you heard me using hiking, surfing. I don't used to do any of this in India, but I do all of this in Ireland. So there is this tendency to do these outdoor activities. The West is not like how we think. It is not a place where people eat processed food and don't cook food. And that may be, I don't know, that might be true from an American aspect to some extent. Like they work a lot and they might not have time to cook and everything. But the European culture is a work life balance. And there is work-life balance, and you can ask for work-life balance. You don't have to work 24 hours as a PhD student. You work properly, and if you work from your stipulated time, you have time left. Now, it becomes the sun sets at 4 a.m. in Ireland, sorry, 4 p.m. Or 3:30 sometimes, or sometimes it feels like set already even at 12 o'clock. But the point is, summer comes, it only sets at 10 p.m. So that means if you get out from your 4 a.m., you could actually go for a evening trip to some other city or a hike and then come back home. There is time for that, or you could take your bike and go. So what I'm trying to say is, I took some time to get used to these activities, but maybe you people should, the moment you come, you should join some. Either you could join meetups. So meetups is a common online platform where you can see people. Say for example, there are meetups for cricket. So then I could just go and play cricket. There are meetups for baseball or rounders or some. Or there are meetups to go on a hike. There are meetups to go for a coffee. So or you could use apps like couch surfing. to go to another part of Ireland and live there for free because you obviously don't have much money with you. So you could use that to go and do activities. Couch surfing also is like a meetup group, so you don't have to really go to somebody's house, but you are living somewhere else, but you could choose to meet people there and so on. So that's one thing. So what I'm really talking about is assimilation. What often happens or sometimes happens is PhD students have physically moved themselves to Ireland, but emotionally they are attached to India. They watch Indian news, they talk with Indian people, they talk with Indian friends. All important, all very good. But then I think the important thing would be to know what's happening in Ireland and what sports Ireland, what sport Irish people do. Like for example, rugby, which Indians have no idea of. And I'm not saying that I watch rugby all the time, but you need to know a little bit about it. So that you can have a conversation about it. Like when somebody says the Six Nations, you should know that it is some kind of rugby league with the rugby playing nations, um, and also you should know what's the difference between Ireland and Northern Ireland, that they are not the same country, that Belfast is not a part of the Republic of Ireland. And when I'm talking, I'm always talking about the Republic of Ireland. And if anybody talks about Ireland as a country, they usually refer to the Republic, not to the whole island. A part of the island is part of the UK. And that's where, say, for example, the Ulster University, like the Ulster University or the Queen's University, Belfast, one of the good universities, the really good university, that's there in Northern Ireland. So that has nothing to do with the Republic. You apply for a UK student visa for that. So, but the Republic means Trinity College Dublin, University College Dublin, University of Galway, University of Limerick, and all the other TUs that we are talking about. So, so it's important to understand, look where Ireland is, and also appreciate the fact that Ireland is part of the EU, but it is not part of Schengen because it is away from the mainland, and the good UK is in between, creating all complexities that it can create for Ireland, not allowing it to have a direct access to Europe. Now with Brexit even more complicated, having borders with Northern Ireland and all those things. But the point is, if you are doing a PhD in Ireland, this is like the worst case scenario, that you might be stuck in this tiny island and you're coming from a huge country, but you would be stuck in the sense like you need a visa every time you have to go to Europe. And getting a visa, it requires a lot of paperwork. To a letter from your supervisor. So even if you just want to go for tourism on a weekend, you can actually take a Ryanair flight which costs 10 euros. But then the documentation would need you to get a letter from your supervisor that you're going and all those things, which is like, but this is where the intercultural difference is. Tell your supervisor that I want to go on the weekend to Europe. I want to go and I want to watch this match. I want to go to say London. I'm going to visit the Lord's Cricket Stadium to watch a cricket match. He can't say no, or she can't say no. So because you're doing it on your weekend, or maybe there is a long weekend, Monday is a holiday or Friday is a holiday, you're going, or you're taking 1 or 2 days leave and you're going for the entire week, or for 9 days, you want a break. You can ask all these things. And these things, if you feel your supervisor is not very amenable, put these things in writing in an email. If he responds negatively, or if they don't respond, all that would be a problem. So every time when you try to do a PhD, try to see what are your responsibilities as a student, and also see what are the responsibilities of your supervisor. This would be there in the handbook. Handbook is your Bible. Look, this is another problem. Everybody gets stipend, this, that, and forgets everything about the handbook. Go to the Dean of Graduate Studies or Graduate Studies, depending upon how your college terminology is. Go to that website, download the handbook, and read. Then you would know your rights and your duties. It's important to know both. Not just saying that after not doing your own work, if you put all the blame on the supervisor, it also shows. The supervisor can also show that this is how it was done. But to make your life easier, be honest and open. When you don't do things, just say. Don't have the Indian. I mean, I'm not generalizing, but I have this fear of supervisors that they are at a higher level. Yes, they are at a higher expertise level, but as human beings, we are all equal. We are all equal. So that way you can be polite, but you don't have to dig a hole and bury yourself. You don't have to show that much, like, don't, it should not be at the expense of your mental health and well-being and your physical health and well-being. So that is acceptable in Ireland. And if you are reasonable, you do your work, I think you will get all these letters to travel. But it is not easy to get a Schengen visa. This is something that we collectively as students are trying to, change. And this is something the Indian government, etc. So it's a really high-level thing. I tried talking to the Irish University Association, but it's more bilateral. It's something which is really difficult to change because of it's away from the geography and it's not joined the Schengen and all those things. So Schengen is a European common travel area zone. There are so many zones. So all the countries of the European Union are not members of Schengen. Some countries out of the European Union can be members of Schengen. So, say for example, Switzerland is out of the EU, but it is part of the Schengen travel zone. So if you get a Schengen visa, you can go to Zurich as well. But of course, be careful. It's very, very expensive in Zurich. But anyway, so these are some of the things we can go endless. One more thing that I want to say, I know it's a bit long, but still it's important, is how do you deal with people? How do you talk? So look, we are Indians. Our dialect affects the way we speak English, right? Now, you have to understand there are few Indians here, not many Indians here. People are not always used to Indian accent, Indian tone, Indian reactions. Okay, so they might not understand what you think that you have mastered English. Your first language is English. It's the only language in which you do science. Of course, you talk to your mother maybe in Malayalam or Hindi or Tamil or whatever, but we all mostly have our first language is English from kindergarten. So we have that pride that, or whatever. I don't know whether it's a thing of pride, but anyway, the point is we have this notion that we know everything, but mostly we do make a lot of mistakes. Our pronunciation is not really consistent with how things should be. So, for example, if we mismatch the V and the W, the way we say that, if we don't say it properly, the Irish people won't pick up. Indians are good at guessing accents. Irish people are the worst. They won't understand what you're trying to say unless you change your accent to something that they would understand. So that's my current accent. Like, of course, this is fake. This is for them to understand. Now, if I start screaming or if I'm really agitated and in a pressure situation, my proper Indian English would come out. And I have no problems, no qualms about owning that. But if I do that all the time in Ireland, first of all, my throat will be really, really tired from the way I speak that way. But they won't understand. So should I change my accent slightly, or would expect 4.5 million people in Ireland to guess my accent? So I think the former is better. So that's what this also I took a bit of time to understand myself, but I am trying to change it to make it easier to them. And what is the effect? Like when you try to do that, it also becomes easier for everybody across the world, like because it becomes a standard kind of accent. And so these are little things. Another thing is about the teenagers problem. So you have to understand that up till 18 years, mostly in many European countries, children have so many rights. So if a teenager comes and utters racial abuses at you, or try to attack you, unfortunately, in the current scenario, um, there is um, there is no punishment for them, and this incentivizes some of the teens in some really underprivileged areas. So you would think that these are developed countries; they don't have, but actually, they have more homeless people than we would think. There would be homeless people, and there would be a lot of people with substance abuse issues. So parents who are, um, you know, involved with substance abuse, and the children are not raised well. So these children are usually called the inner city kids, and these inner city kids would be loitering around places where we would go, and maybe we are going to an Asian shop. In usually Asian shops are always in isolated streets. So then these teenagers could come and would say, "Oh, go back to your country." And if you start saying, "No, I have a right to remain here and be all righteous," you are going to get attacked. Better, you don't have to prove anything to those kids. They don't mean anything to you. And that, I know that's not the attitude that we have. And it is not fair that we have to change, but these are some tensions. See, look, be prepared that you are in a foreign country. How much ever you try to assimilate, you are in a foreign. Every now and then, you would meet the sweetest people, even more sweet and more welcoming. During COVID, one of my colleagues just took me into their family home, and I lived with them for 3-4 months for free. Even in India, I don't think that will happen. And that was amazing. But at the same time, I have personal instances where teens have attacked me. Only from then I knew that how I should, deal with these people. So when you get on a train, and if you see teenagers, for example, you should see what is the coach number, and you should always know what is the emergency number. It's so important to know, say if it is 911 or 999 or whatever that is, or if you're on a train, the coach number and the particular train number. And you would also think the police, they would look very muscular and big and all that, but their policing is really ineffective. Unless you're murdered, they're not going to find the culprit. They would say there is no CCTV. That is their standard investigation answer. So that is there in their autocorrect or whatever. They would give you a letter with that. There was no CCTV, and that's it. So don't be disillusioned by that. Now, how do you maneuver some of these things? Now, to maneuver these things, you should have a close relationship with the Indian embassy, I think. And if you have any trouble, you should actually contact the Indian embassy. This is something that I wasn't aware until I got attacked. Then I was in touch with them. But it's great if you register with the Indian embassy and you're always in touch with them. If you have any issue, and so there will be always global office in colleges, and there will also be counseling services. You could always use that. And there will be student to student counseling, night lines. Make use of all these whenever you are depressed or anything like that. But if it's not getting resolved within your institution, always go to your embassy, because I know that you don't want to share all the bad experiences with your family back home. Maybe it's okay to share, but sometimes they get too worried about you. So then the students have a tendency to keep things by myself. So in my own case, when I was attacked, I never told my family till maybe 3 years. And maybe after that, even now, I don't know if I hope they don't listen to this, but anyway. So those things can happen, but for getting attacked one day by some teenagers, or um, you know, being subjected to some racial abuses, would you not go to Ireland? I don't think so. I think it is a very, very good place to live, and great air, great water. And that's very important. Now we know the contemporary things of our equality back in India, and in many places. I'm not saying everywhere it's bad, but Ireland, what is one of the best thing? You have the best environment. You have rain all the time, but you have to learn to live with the rain. The rain is like a drizzle, in Indian drizzle. It's not an Indian monsoon that you have to worry. It's not like that. It's just a rain. Rain should become a part of your body. That you should be happy to be a bit wet, and you will dry. It's fine. You should have that attitude if you want to live in Ireland. You have to look at the weather app, wear proper clothes. You get proper clothes. So look at the clothes that I'm wearing today. I have no heating on, but it's only 3 or 4 degrees or 5 degrees. But I wear those clothes and I'm comfortable. So. Um, so I think that's how it's a bit of common sense and being really observant of their culture and having an open mind. And yes, you have to go to pubs if you want to socialize, yes, but it's not necessary that you should drink. I mean, if you want to, of course, but again, and if it comes to it, like you have an addiction or something, again, there are The counseling centers usually look after it, but better not go there. But the pubs are great places in Ireland. It's a place where like maybe as a PhD research team, people go departmental wise, people go, and you could have whatever you like. You could have tea, you could have coffee, or you could have soft drinks, or mocktails, or whatever you want. It need not be something with alcohol, but it has that social aspect of it. And of course, like, you should check it out. Like, and if you're into Western music, and then if you are in Ireland, obviously all the pop stars, they would be playing nearby you. You would never know, but they are. So you can always look for those kind of events. So Eventbrite is something that you could subscribe to and see the events. And so this is how then you would make friends. You would meet someone, and I don't know, maybe you would meet an Irish boy or girl or whatever. And uh, but that would be nice. You can share the rent that way. Or you bring your Indian girlfriend or boyfriend with you so that you can share a room as well. But you'll always fight, within that constrained space if you're sharing too much. So, but anyway, the accommodation crisis is there, normal. So
Yeah.
in Dublin, it's really hard to get a house to live, and that is a challenge. More and more student accommodations are being built. They are expensive, so it could be like 1,200 euro per month, which your stipend, even the latest revised stipend would be about 2,000 euros, the best stipend in Ireland, but the usual stipend is only 1,300 euros, 2,400, 500. So if you pay 1,200 for a proper room, that might not be possible. So you might have to settle in for a smaller room, or something like that, or might have to stay slightly away from the city and then commute. Um, but if you're not in an experimental work, then there is a chance that you could do some remote work or something like that. So I do remote work now because my work is not experimental. So I live really far away and do remote work. But as a PhD student, that might not be the case. You need to be more in the university. So yes, do expect, but the economy is always changing. So in the UK, there is a slight housing prices crash. So I hope that comes in Ireland as well. But that's how things work. Now they're increasing the supply, and then there might be a crash, when all the supply goes up. So hope so that it comes down. But right now, you should expect at least 1,000 euros to go away from you. And how you can balance some of it is by being a teaching assistant. If you ask me, I wouldn't recommend you as a PhD student going and working in Burger King or McDonald's or something like that. But unless you are in that chef mode and that's what you want, but better would be to find something teaching assistantship within the university. That would be the better way, because you would find time within your PhD. You don't have to go to another place. You don't have to commute to another place, and you don't have to be in that kind of a sweaty environment. You would just need to, do some teaching assistantship, and you might get an extra income of about, I don't know, like it's paid around 25 euros per hour or something. But if you work in a McDonald's, it's paid like 12 euros per hour. So you could see the difference. And towards later stages of a PhD, sometimes you could also give lectures, part-time lecturing or something. Sometimes, depending upon your field and programs and what your supervisor says, then you can be paid for lectures 70 euros per hour. Maybe it's only a 3-hour lecture in a year, but bits and bobs here and there, you would get some money like that. And to travel, you would have, say, Trinity has the Trinity Travel Grant. Your supervisor would be able to support you from projects. Projects have travel grants. So you would be able to and go to conferences. That's your great networking opportunity. You should go to conferences at least once a year. You don't have to see your best work. You could always put in journal, but then a small extension of that or something, or if it is just an oral presentation, you can even present your journal work in that conference. So, but as an early researcher, if you don't have any results, that shouldn't deter you from going to a conference. Go apply for the travel grant and go, and you get more ideas than anything, because it just becomes a monologue between your mind and your supervisor inputs at some point. But you want to widen your horizon a bit, and that would be great. But Ireland is beautiful. You should explore it. And um, any place in Ireland you place a camera, it's just beautiful because it's always green. It's always green. So, and the sea is everywhere. It's an island, and mountains are everywhere, and that increases the beauty. And yeah.
Yeah, so the research aspirants who may wish to pursue a PhD or a postdoctorate at Ireland may also be interested to know about the possibilities of getting a permanent residency in Ireland. So, if you can share some insight on that, it would be great.
Sure, Namal. This is a very important thing. So, first of all, if you're a student, you're on a visa called Stamp 2. And for PhD students, there is not a standard way, but there is a case by case basis. You could actually try to bring your partner or your your wife or husband or whatever that may be as well. That is using a visa called 2A, stamp 2A for them, but they're not allowed to work in Ireland. Whereas in the UK, they're allowed to work. And also, you should appreciate the fact that students are not treated, PhD students are not treated as workers in Ireland. There is a movement to treat us as both students and workers. So that movement and that demonstration is going on in Ireland at the moment. But if you see in countries like Germany and France, the Belgium, for example, as well, they are both students and staff. But in Ireland, it's not. So the time that you spend on your PhD won't be counted towards your residency. It's only when you get a job after your PhD, the clock will start ticking. And if you want a particular year to be considered in full, you should not be away from Ireland for that year for more than 6 weeks. So if you're away for more than 6 weeks, just 6 weeks will be deducted. It's not like your whole year. But if it is your, so the progression is like stamp 2, you're not considered. Stamp 2A, your spouse not considered. You get a job, you become stamp 1. And your spouse becomes stamp 1G. It will be really easy to bring the spouse once you get stamp 1. Stamp 1G is called the graduate student scheme. So if you get a proper job, you always want to get stamp 1. But then sometimes you have these, these graduate engineer jobs, the entry level jobs. So those, and there is a stay back of 2 years for all postgraduates. So whether you are master's or PhD, you can stay back in Ireland for 2 years finding for job. And that is the stamp 1G. But for the stamp 1G, it is also considered towards your citizenship, yes, but it is still considered to be slightly inferior than stamp 1. So stamp 1 is what you're looking at, because stamp 1 then leads to stamp 4. And then stamp 4 leads to PR. So the route is stamp 1, stamp 4, PR. And when they look for PR, they're looking for 5 cognizable years or recognizable years. So these 5 recognizable years are years in which you're resident in Ireland, like you're not leaving Ireland for more than 6 weeks. So out of the past 8 years, any 5 years, if you have that, especially the last year, you should not be away from Ireland for 6 weeks. Otherwise, you can be away for 6 weeks. Just those 6 weeks would be taken away from your 1,460 days that you have to be resident in Ireland. But the last year you have to. So it is a bit confusing for me, because earlier when 1G was introduced, it was not, it was not considered for immigration, like for PR. But now it is being considered for PR. But 1G is say, for example, as a researcher, you're looking at a hosting agreement. If you go as an engineer, you want a critical skills visa. These are the powerful visas which you can bring your family in, and within 2 years of being on that visa, you would become a stamp 4. So you would go to stamp 4, and then 3 years in stamp 4, or 5 years on stamp 1, you can apply for citizenship. So 5 years in stamp 1, or 2 years stamp 1 plus 3 years stamp 4. So what is the advantage of taking stamp 4 is stamp 4 gives you the right to do any job that you like. Whereas stamp 1, if it is a hosting agreement, you're limited. You can only work for that company for that particular task. You can't even do anything else. It's very restricted. Whereas once you get stamp 4, which you might not get in the case of stamp 1G, if you're going that route, you have to be in 5 years in that narrow space. But if you go stamp 1 route, you get a hosting agreement as a postdoctoral researcher. So I am currently on stamp 1 on my second year. So towards the end of this year, I would be applying for stamp 4. So then I get stamp 4. The advantage is I can then apply for any jobs that I like, not the restricted critical skills work, or research work. I can be a bartender. I can start a business or something like that, which I can't do while I am on stamp 1. So stamp 1 could also be for business, then you should only do business. But if you're stamp 1 as a researcher, you should only do research. But when you are on stamp 4, you get all the benefits. You start getting all the benefits of the citizens, and you could, I don't think you could vote, but what you could do is you could apply for the Irish civil services if you wanted to. You could apply for many EU similar things with EU, which have this restriction of either being a EU citizen or a stamp 4. So it will just, and also you have to renew your stamp for only every 2 years, not every year. So definitely it'll be much easier for you that way. And then once you have a 2 years valid visa, when you apply for a European Schengen visa as well, they might give you for 2 years because you have a 2 years valid Irish visa. So yeah, so this. I don't know how clear it is, but if you go to Irish immigration stamps, you would have the whole story there. But this is how it is. So we are not looking at being a student doesn't add any value. So finish your PhD as fast as possible and get on stamp 1. That's how you go through and you also have to know that once you're Irish citizen, like India doesn't offer dual citizenship, Ireland offers dual citizenship. So Irish people could be technically UK citizens or US or anyone with a dual citizenship. But Indians, the route is you relinquish your Indian citizenship, and you become an OCI, overseas citizen of India, and then you get your Irish citizenship. So it's great for travel. Let's accept that. So
that was something very unique with respect to other countries, wherein like the student tenure will be also considered as a tenure for considering of permanent residency. Yeah.
So you have to be at least like 9 years to
Exactly.
be Irish.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that elaborate non-academical part of being a researcher in Ireland. Of course, yeah, before reaching to a new place, we might have a lot of concerns related to how that place is going to treat us. And it is through people like you, we can at least get a glance about what all things we should look, what all things we should consider. And yeah, thank you for sharing that insight. So by this, we have come to the end of this podcast. And so in this podcast episode, we discuss the challenges and opportunities that comes with pursuing a research in Ireland. We cover topics such as cultural differences, balancing academic responsibilities with family commitments, and managing living expenses. We also explore various career paths available to research students in Ireland and provide tips for developing important skills such as data analysis and entrepreneurship. Dr. Unnikrishnan's insight and knowledge will undoubtedly be a great value to anyone considering pursuing a PhD in Ireland. We appreciate his contribution and believe in his input will be helpful to inspire and inform research aspirants who is thinking about doing a research in Ireland. So thank you again for your time and expertise, Dr. Unnikrishnan. So we would like to have a couple of words from your side about this group, and now would like to know what all things we have to consider that may help the research aspirants way to pursue their dream to become a scientist or a researcher whatsoever.
First of all, Nirmal, this is a great platform that you have created to help researchers, and I'm really happy to be a part of this. And I'm sure my contact details would be there with Nirmal. And if you are, having some questions about Ireland, you could reach out. I might direct you to someone who would know more about that field or something like that. But I think as a platform, this is great, and you are bringing in diverse experiences of, to the students and aspirants, and this format, I think, of covering not only the academic but also the intercultural aspects and real experiences would be of great value. So I wish all of you good luck with your applications. I may be PhD or anything else. And one more thing I could also say: there's no wrong or right time to do a PhD. You can do a PhD when you're 50 years old as well. So if you feel like you need 3 years of industry experience like Nirmal, and then venture into a PhD, yes, it's a change of scene, but it might be useful because you already have that confidence of doing things, and so yeah, you definitely can do a PhD after the bachelor's. Master's degree is becoming a bit of a weird thing for PhD at the moment. If you have a bachelor's and if you have some kind of research and interest, and if you're able to write a good research proposal, yes, you can do. Masters give you a bit more training on research, but you have to spend 2 years. Now, if you come to the UK or Ireland, it's only 1 year. So in India, you have to spend 2 years. But yes, that's why so many Indians are hired as PhD students, because they have that good training, and sometimes they've already published during their masters, and maybe their master's thesis supervisor has a link outside, so that way it helps as well. So that's how kind of like my current supervisor knew my master's supervisor and stuff like that, So it helps in some ways, but PhD is not the end of the road, and you can do a PhD whenever you like. But whenever you like, you refer to Nirmal's PhD PDF podcast, and I also follow Dr. Nirmal. He is a great researcher. I really like his, like green hydrogen, green oxygen, oxygen-based or steel manufacturing and stuff like that. I don't know much about it, but I really think it's really cool. So anyway, Nirmal, thanks a lot for this opportunity. And Nirmal is my childhood friend as well. Like, I know him for so many years. I don't know how many years, but since we were like engineering aspirants, not PhD aspirants, like we met in some of these coaching classes, and again we both studied in IIT Guwahati together. So that's where we rekindled our friendship. And yeah. Thanks a lot, Nirmal. Have a great day, everybody, and nice to see you.